So what I would love to do, and I might pass it over to Chriselle for this, but we really, so let me walk you back. So I've been doing end of life doula work for 9 years here in Richmond. And when I started, I Googled end of life doulas Virginia, death doulas Virginia, and nobody was coming up. Not saying that there are not people doing the work, but nobody was doing the work and at least putting it on the internet. I could not find anyone. So what I did is I would go to directories of Anelda's directory, or once NIDA started, the NIDA's directory, and kind of gathered uh, emails from people in Virginia, just so I could feel not alone. And that started 9 years ago, and I'm so happy to say my sweet little list is now over 100 doulas. Many of you know, or maybe I'm also an Anelda educator. So when I know I'm educating people who are in Virginia, I kind of like hit them up on the backside. It's like, hey, you want to join my little email list? And so it is growing and growing and growing. And Nikki Hansen, she's to my right. I don't know where she is on your screen. And I have a peaceful passing in Richmond, Virginia that we've been doing for 9 years. And then enter Christelle, who I will pass the mic to next, who is really the engine of like, we need to do this. We need to make this like an organized thing. We need to get us all together. Now that there are more and more people who are training to support end of life, more at the state level, what we are finding is what we're hoping also is that eventually when end of life doulas might be able to get, paid out of HSA accounts or flex spending accounts, a lot of times the insurers are going to state coalitions for end of life doulas to get information, to find out who are these people. And so we really wanted to start this process with that kind of goal in mind, that maybe that will happen down the road. And we wanted to make sure that doulas in Virginia, no matter where you are, whether you're in rural Virginia or you're in Northern Virginia, that you feel that you have the support that you need in our state. Not that there's not wonderful, national professional organizations, but what's happening here in our state. And so a couple months ago, Christelle kind of brought together with her amazing connections some doulas who wanted to do this more officially and make a state organization. And so we kind of wanted, this is kind of our first, like where we're actually like using these words and talking about where we see this going, what we hope to see happen. That the Virginia End of Life Doula Alliance is
Collective.
yes, collective. I knew alliance wasn't right. Collective becomes actually a thing. We have the website domain. Nikki is working on a website. So this is just, we're still in building stage. We're trying to understand 501c6s. What does that include? Getting legal stuff involved. So we are still in the inception, but we wanted to absolutely rope everyone in just to kind of let you know where we are and to set the stage for where we hope to be. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Christelle to see if you wanted to add. Well, introduce yourself, certainly, and to add anything you want.
Wonderful. Hello. And I do also see some familiar faces, and I'm so happy to have you guys here. So yes, like Shelby mentioned, we are organizing as a means to bring not only support to one another, but to help bring some more credibility to what we're doing in the community, statewide. And And for me, that really comes from watching these things evolving across the country and knowing that we are moving forward and evolving, and we want to be a part of that. And we also want to be the expertise that the state turns to when it's time to start defining an end of life doula in Virginia. And so we see things like Nielsen, we see other small companies, the tech company that owns Slack, they are now reimbursing for end of life doula services as a benefit, right? In Virginia, birth doulas have recently been granted the opportunity to have Medicaid reimbursement for a certain amount of visits if they are optionally state approved birth doulas in Virginia. And then you go and you read the Virginia code on it, and there is a bunch of, hoops you have to jump through. Again, not a requirement to be a birth doula, but if you want to open up your services to include uh, this other opportunity for you, then you do need to be state certified. And I thought, there's really nothing stopping end of life doulas from having that same opportunity later in life. It's a lot of work, and I do some other legislative advocacy for another group, and so I know that it's not going to be very quick or easy, but someday that could be us. And what's going to happen is those legislators they're going to need to know what it means to be a trained end of life doula. So they're going to look to places like ENELDA, who is a training organization that has been doing this for years, and they have thousands of doulas under their belt. They're going to be looking for places like NEDA, which is a national organization that supports end of life doulas across the country and in other countries. But they're also going to want to look to see, what does an end of life doula in Virginia really look like? Where are they? Who are they? How are they organized? And I think that is really where our collective is going to come into play. I want to make sure that our needs as doulas are being supported, that we are setting ourselves up for success in the state and showing people that there are a lot of us, and helping educate the community as to what we do and how we can be of service to them, and also making sure that we have the opportunity to have up-to-date professional development that's really focused on our state and the partnerships that we're building. So for example, today's guest speaker is going to be a wonderful example of when I have been to a national training or a webinar, and you'll hear things like, well, we don't know for sure the laws in your state, or make sure that you're talking to somebody in your state. And I thought, well, yeah, we should be talking to people in our state. We should be doing that. We should be making these connections with people right now. So it felt really good to meet up with the rest of the board that you're going to hear from today, and to have that motivation and that support to move forward, especially with Shelby's vast network of her email list. Mine is so much smaller than hers. And so I love meeting all of the new people. I love connecting all of the new and the old doulas to see how we can really help each other and help each other grow. And I look forward to hearing from all of you guys here today, to hear what is driving you, what brought you here, what issues you might be having. And just like the basic, ASL about myself, I am the owner of Summit Care Partners based in Williamsburg, Virginia, but I do travel. And I primarily focus on education and outreach, holding workshops and classes in the area on all sorts of death literacy topics. And I limit my clientele to no more than 2 terminal patients at one time, since I am currently a one-man show. And I am going to pass it on to Nikki.
There we go. So I had to unmute myself. My dogs are going crazy a minute ago. Hi, everybody. Nikki Hansen. I work with Shelby with A Peaceful Passing. Been a end-of-life doula since 2016, and I got trained by Henry when he was still training all those years ago. And actually, I'm working on my recertification because I think it's going to lapse at the end of this year. But anyway, so I'm working on that. I currently have a client, and yeah, in terms of the collective, I'm creating the website, which we'll all be able to get access to if you decide that you're happy and want to join the collective. And I'm excited that it's going to be a good site where we're going to be able to have a directory and all sorts of fun stuff. We're still fleshing out the details, but yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to pass it on to Remy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Remy. I'm also in the greater Richmond area. And like Shelby said, I was so happy when I just realize that there were other doulas that were close by and that you didn't have to feel alone. So that's why I absolutely love this community that we're forming. And I'm really excited to see kind of where this goes as the collective, because I think it's going to be really good and really helpful if we can all kind of have even more support in a more like organized fashion, I guess. And so I'm super excited to do everything I can to support the group like as we figure all this out. So I have my business is Crossover Doula Services. And yeah, I'm just like doing my thing, a lot of community outreach and education, lots of workshops and classes with the Lifelong Learning Institute and now Osher's Lifelong Learning Institute. I have a couple of clients that are kind of like longer term clients. So they've got dementia, which is turning out to be a little bit of a specialty thing I'm doing. Yeah, that's about it. So I'm gonna, let's see, who's next? Leanne, you're next to me.
There we go. Hello, everyone. My name's Leanne M. Innit. I'm a death doula in the Woodbridge, Virginia area. I am the issue spotter, if you will, for the collective. And death work is in one form or another, has always been a part of my life, either through personal losses or through professional pursuits. For many years, I operated a heart-lung machine in cardiac surgery as a cardiovascular perfusionist. Then I went to law school. So one of my passions is facilitating the formulation of advanced directives. And then I also enjoy companioning individuals as they have to make end-of-life decisions for their companion animals. So I have end-of-life doula certificates from University of Vermont for both the human and the non-human clients. And I am a Virginia qualified advanced directive facilitator. So that pretty much sums up my background history. And so let's see, I guess next would be Alicia.
Hi. I'm Alicia. I'm in Richmond, Virginia, Chesterfield area. I worked with hospice for 10 years. Became a death doula 2019. I started on my own in 22. I do elder care, death doula, and advanced directives for patients. And I only do a few patients at a time. I stay pretty busy. I have a client now that I've had for 2 years. It was supposed to be for 2 weeks, and I'm still here. So, but it was a couple, but the wife already passed, so I stayed with the husband. So I'm still working with him. So, but I'm very excited to meet all of you and be a part of this group. So thank you. Annette.
Thanks, Alicia. Hi, everyone. I'm new to the group, new to the profession. I just attended the training over the summer. So I'm just here to observe and absorb. I did have one client, she passed in October. And so I'm just kind of trying to get my arms around what's next for me, but this is definitely a calling, a passion. I absolutely love the women that I've met through this collective. I haven't met any men. It's not to say they're not part of the collective, but I love them too if I meet them. But anyway, I just really appreciate the tremendous sharing in this group. It really feels very supportive as a community, and I'm happy to help in any way I can. Thanks.
Annette, I'm going to interject because I didn't realize your client died. Oh, you and I need to grab some coffee or connect.
Thanks.
Annette and I had kind of like, I kind of like supported her along when she had this new client. Oh, she was a pretty special person. So yeah, I would love to hear how that went. And then I'll stop talking and you can name some. Annette, you get to call on somebody.
Sorry, next to my screen. I call on Kelly Bledsoe.
Hi, everyone. So good to meet all of you. I'm based in Arlington. I am a lawyer who has relatively recently felt this calling after volunteering with hospice for a while. And just within the last 2 weeks, I completed the ANELDA training with Shelby as one of my instructors. And so she invited me to join. So I'm still in the phase of, yes, figuring out how to make my community aware that I'm here and how to best articulate what it is that I feel I'm prepared to offer at this time as I continue my education and gaining experience through hospice volunteering. So really looking forward to getting to know all of you. Are we going in any particular order? Anna?
There you go.
Hello. My name is Anna. I was invited by Cristal. I do call her my little mentor. She's great. I'm a death doula. I do have a certificate, but I'm not really as active as I would like to be. Right now, my main focus is working on a hospice house in the northern neck of Virginia. Within that hospice house, I know we will need a death doula. So a lot of my actions as a death doula will probably be within that hospice house. But I'm happy to be here to learn more than I do know right now and to learn from all of you all. And is it Tasha Green?
Actually, I just have a quick question. Anna, where are you? Are you located in Williamsburg near Cristal? Or are you more Northern Neck area?
I'm the Northern Neck.
Okay, so there is another doula I'm aware of who's in the Northern Neck. I don't know where exactly, but maybe put your email in the chat. And if I connect with her, I'll just connect with you just so you know there's other people in your neck of the woods.
Sure.
Perfect. Tashia, girl, cheers.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Hey, Shelby. I'm Tashia Green. I've gone through 2 ANELDA trainings. My first one was I can't remember if it was 2020 or 2021. It was during COVID. It was not on site, so both trainings have been virtual, but have been great. I also serve as a volunteer with Gentiva. Also, I'm here in the Richmond area. I failed to mention that. Um, let's see. I had a patient for a year. She died in June. And I haven't picked up a patient since. I've done like a little bit of light work in between, but I haven't picked up a true patient since that I've worked with long term. I've done a few death cafes here in Richmond. I've worked a little bit with Interworks. And now that we are at the end of the year, I need to kind of sit and figure out what I'm looking to kind of dibble and dabble in going into 2025. So it's great to be in the group. Nice meeting you all. And
Tashia, can I interject real quick?
Learning pattern here.
Tashia, can I have a quick question?
Yes, ma'am.
Just so everybody knows what the work you've done with the inner work, and Rami, I know Erin was part of it. You were part of it too. Are you still doing workshops? I know Erin is doing it. Tashia, are you still doing that with her? So it's Erin's, and I think Linda's doing it with her 1 month. Okay. Because you all were running death cafes.
Yep, it was a 3-series death cafe that started in August. We did one October, and then there was one, was it end of October or November? But it was a 3-part series. So I haven't done anything I haven't done anything with Erin past that. I need to connect with her. and I need to call on someone. And I'm going to call on one of my favorites, Linda.
Hello.
Linda, the sun's behind you, so no one will know what you look like. You look like you're in witness protection program right now.
Well, maybe that's a good idea. I'm sorry. It's the way my windows are. I'm sorry. So I'm Linda Winston. I've been trained by NELDA. I've been a death doula for 5 years. And currently, I continue to do the end-of-life conversation groups. I have 2 that I'm doing. And some of the community awareness. I've been working with the UU Church in Richmond for the last 3 years. And so I just finished. And tomorrow, actually, I have another presentation with them for their pastoral care lay people. So we're going to be talking about that and how to deal with vigils and that kind of stuff because they're very active. I've also will be doing in the spring with Erin 3 sessions at Interworks. And I have still 2 clients. In the fall, I had 3, but one recently died. So I'm in Richmond, and I'm very excited to hear about the collective and can't wait. And who do I call? Hold on a second. Bren?
Oh, you have to unmute. You're all good.
It's true. I'm in Richmond also, and finished my training in 2019, just in time for the pandemic to bloom. I wasn't sure at that time, but since that time have not operated in as professional capacity. So I don't charge for services, and I don't know if we'll want to talk about that at this point, but whether the collective is for people who have it as a career or profession. Mine is more to be an educator, to learn about it, whether you're an Uber driver, a family member, or whoever else. I love talking about and educating people about what doulas do and can do. Right now, what I have been doing, I guess, is as a hospice volunteer and as a family caregiver, using the training in that way. And people in my church also have asked me to be that person for them. So I've made arrangements with a number of people in my church to be that kind of pair of hands and have met their children, and so they know that they will have a person they can connect with who is familiar with their parents' wishes and so forth. That's where I have been. As I said, it may be that the collective needs to be, particularly given the ultimate goal that you hope will happen of being known as a resource and that can be financially reimbursed. If it needs to be in that professional capacity, then I would understand that. But I'm just interested in learning about what's going on and being a part of it if that's appropriate with this group. So,
Absolutely, Brendan. We all doula differently. There's no one way to doula. And so this is a collective for anybody who trains as an end-of-life doula and either is an advocate, an educator, supports people one-on-one, whether they charge, they don't charge, work pro bono. None of that does it. It's just anybody who wants to stay connected as an end-of-life doula, however you define that.
I think it's good to have that clear because I know I've been in settings where that had a lot of tension around it, and I understand that in certain settings. It wasn't directed at me personally, but it was very clear that was an issue, and some of it was when people were struggling with how to manage thinking themselves about how to charge and so forth. So that's just a whole different arena, but anyway, just wanted to put that out there as something that can be a source of tension in different settings. Now I have to see who's here.
Hey, Bren, while you're picking somebody, I'm definitely only speaking for myself and not anybody else on the board, but I am familiar with the tension that Bren is speaking of, and I personally hope that that these opportunities to interact with volunteer doulas will help us understand that there is a place for everyone in the community, whether they are paid or not. And I oftentimes will compare it to other professions who volunteer their time and services for people that need help with taxes, with people that need pro bono legal aid, with people that will donate their time as a social worker in a different capacity than their regular paid job. There is a place for people to professionally donate their time, and I don't see why end-of-life doulas need to be any different just because we are what some people would define as an emerging profession. So, Bren, we will welcome you with open arms.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm going to put Regan. Regan or Reagan?
Regan.
All right, yay.
So this is a great time for me to chime in because I strongly believe that death care is community care and that can be paid and it can be unpaid. And I really don't see a value difference in either or one more than the other. Okay, yeah, my name is Regan. Virginia, and that's where I have been located when I'm in Virginia. I've been out of the Southwest for about a year and out east to be closer to my family and particularly my parents and spending a lot of time in Virginia with them, but also moving around the east a little bit and figuring out where I live. So it's like a little weird for me to figure out how to explain that. But I spent a significant time in Virginia. I will continue to whether I settle there or not. So that is why I'm here on this Virginia Collective call. My business name is Stable and Self, and like really feel like I use the term business really lightly in some ways, even though I spend so much time on it and so much time on the website. I'm also an Ayurvedic practitioner, which is a form of holistic healthcare based on the medical science in India. So I've been practicing that for a while and then just kind of tying in holistic life care, healthcare, and death care just goes right along with it for me. I did my training with Going with Grace about yeah, I think it was in November, 3 years ago. And also have
Regan, I think you froze up. Regan, where did you go?
Just for once, it wasn't my internet this time.
I know, I always looked at everybody else is moving, it's not me.
Right? And so I was like, oh, faces are moving, it's not me. Okay, well, why don't we wait for Regan to rejoin us and we can I will call on somebody for Regan, and the next person I see is Jody. Oh wait, Regan's sorry. I think Regan's back.
Excellent.
I'm back. If someone else is I can also be done. It's okay.
No, you go ahead and finish. We were picking someone for you to go next.
Okay. I feel funny because I don't know where it cut off, but I think I said I did my training 3 years ago with Going with Grace. I was doing a lot of elder care prior to even like knowing what a death doula was, and really feel like I've been involved in death care in some ways since I was like a child, but like that it's just like work that's been part of my life before I did the training that I did. So I think that's it. I think I feel like I lost track a little bit, but I think that's good. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Regan. Next is Jody.
Hello, I'm Jody Kuhn. I'm in Richmond City. I met Shelby last month at the ANELDA training, the in-person ANELDA training that I was volunteering at to help out, and of course to kind of retrain while I was there. I mean, so it was great. It was a great opportunity. I originally took the training about 3.5 years ago, and I volunteer at Compassus, which is formerly Bon Secours in the Richmond area, and for hospice and mostly respite. And during the day, I work at the Virginia State Legislature. So I'm really interested in how, if we'll have legislation on medical aid in dying or things this year, kind of how that part will work and if I can be of any help. So, yeah.
Jody Cristal's eyeballs just popped out of her head because she's super involved with Compassionate Choices. So all of a sudden, when you said that, between her and Annette, who are both like big advocates in that space, they both was like, whoa.
Excellent. Yeah, I love talking about the legislator. I'm the executive director for the Joint Commission on Technology and Science. So not at all related, but I can at least, help with who I know and what I know. So
we're glad to have you, Jody.
Yeah. Let me see. I think all of the video, I think all the faces. So has Leanne went?
Leanne has gone. Laura and Jet and Ashley are left, I believe.
So Laura, thank you.
Laura, you just joined us and we're just introducing ourselves. I don't know if you're there or in a space that you're able to come off mute. Maybe you're driving or something. Or maybe you stepped away. Okay, so Laura, if you come back, if you're hearing us, we'll come to you later. Let us know. Ashley, are you there? Ashley. All right, Yetta, are you there? Oh, Ashley's there.
I'm here. I'm sorry that me and Zoom are arguing since about last week.
We're taking some time apart.
So if I have my camera and my mic on, something messes up. So that's why I don't have my camera on today. But I am, of course, Ashley Moore. I am a end-of-life doula. I am a co-owner of Guiding Soul Doula Services that I co-own with my very good friend Rosa, who is a death doula. We've been doing this for about 2 years out of Lynchburg. We have a couple of death doulas within the Lynchburg area that are starting to emerge, which is going to be great. I just have to get them on these Zoom calls as well. But we currently, mainly our focus in our business has been doing a lot of education. We've been asked here recently by several different community members to do a lot of upcoming education. So for the first quarter of 2025, we're going to be pretty busy doing a lot of kind of bigger events. There is a large gap in our area for infant and miscarriage. There's very, very little support groups, and the support groups that are out there don't fit all the needs. So we are working on a couple of different things in that aspect and doing a lot of education in our area just on the need of planning, just because it's a pretty big gap. And really that's where most of our business is lying right now, is going out and doing a lot of education and helping people with advanced care planning. We both have backgrounds as nurses, so that kind of helps facilitate that. And then Of course, the other part of our business that has been a big proponent is when people have passed and the family is sitting there with a house and a whole bunch of paperwork and no idea where to go, and helping them navigate that. So that's kind of where we are flourishing at this moment. And yeah, but we've been doing this for about 2 years, and spent probably the first year in this area doing nothing but grassroots and educating businesses about death doulas. And then towards this last year, we have started to build clientele based off of those grassroots.
And I also want to give Ashley props. She's also on the board of the coalition as our like secretary. She takes the most amazing minutes. So let me give you props for that, Ashley.
Well, thank you.
All right, Yetta, are you there? I know you were on your phone and you joined with your computer. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm here.
Yay.
Yay. Yay is right. Sorry I missed all the intros. I was having a hard time getting on. I would recommend maybe including the direct Zoom link instead of just the QR code. Because people like me who don't know how to make that work. Anyhow, I recently trained with Shelby and the rest of her team down in Richmond. I have been a massage therapist and birth doula for the last 25 years. I've been interested in this work for a number of years. I actually looked into it back in 2019. But it was a little too close to when my mom had passed. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. I have a name, I have a logo. I'm working on a website and plan on combining both the birth work, the end of life work, and my massage, sort of holding space for everyone from cradle to grave.
Thank
Hello?
you. Welcome. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Good to hear from you. And remind me, Yetta, where are you located though?
I'm up in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
I live in Fairfax, and I work in Ballston area of Arlington, and I'm going to be opening a space on my own in Falls Church.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Laura, you're the only one we haven't heard from. So if you come off mute at any time.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm in a car, so I'm
Yes.
gonna need to mute again, but I didn't want you to think that I was just being rude.
I would never think that. No. Do you want to say anything quick about where you are, what you're doing?
I'm in DC, actually. I'm part of a group of doulas and other death workers that we've created kind of a small community called Death Lab DMV. And so I'm really excited about what y'all are doing. And I serve as the death doula in residence at Congressional Cemetery. And I just really want to know what's going on out there so I can support other doulas and pull everybody up. So that's why I wanted to join in.
Thank you, Laura. You all are doing some great stuff at Congressional Cemetery. I see the stuff coming out. It's awesome. Thank you for coming on.
Come visit. Come visit.
I need to. We all need to do it. We always said we wanted to do field trips. Every time we get together, we're like, we need to do a field trip to a natural cemetery. We need to do a field trip to the cemetery.
Absolutely.
That would be great. Thank
Hey,
you, Laura.
Laura, can I share your Discord? Is that something?
Yes.
Okay.
Everyone is welcome. And if you have any questions about Discord, trust me, none of us really understand it. Just join in.
We'll ask my kid.
Yes. Yes.
I was gonna say I know it from my sons. They play video games on it, but I'm guessing you don't want to start playing video games with her. So what is on the Discord?
It's a platform. It's a lot like the other platforms, but because nobody knew it, and we all want to be cool to our kids, we use that so that people can't say, "Oh, I don't do Facebook, I don't do Slack." So it's just a way to to pull people together. And I don't want anyone to feel intimidated by the platform. It's just like all the others. It's just one that most people haven't used yet.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, if you could share that, please, Crystal.
Yes, I'm gonna log
Thank
in
you,
and grab
Crystal.
it. No problem.
Thank you. So in about 15 minutes, Ramey's friend is going to come, who is she represents, Ramey, correct me, she's the Virginia Cremation Society funeral director.
She's with Cremation Choice of Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll have her expertise for any questions. But until then, we have 15 minutes to talk about what's going on, what do we want, what do we want this space to look like. This is the one great thing about a developing organization, is we get to mold it the way we want. Yes, Crystal.
I was going to say, maybe also if anybody is there something in the form of support or development or et cetera, that you are lacking, that you wish somebody could help you get a grip on? What are some pain points, or what are some ways that you're hoping that we can come together as a group? Like, what would you like to see as a community of Virginia-based doulas and partnerships?
I can go. I think for me, just having kind of retaken the training last month, anything Virginia specific as far as the options that we have here in terms of, cremation versus, is there a natural cemetery in Virginia? Are there, things like that, would be helpful to know, to be able to, because I feel like I'm like some proselytizer for end of life discussions and things like that. And so to be able to be helpful, that's something that, of course, any training can't do, because it has to be all encompassing. So it would be, kind of a nice to have. Doesn't have to be a foundational thing, but.
Awesome. Thank you.
And can I just clarify? So what you think would be nice would be a specific list of people in Virginia that you can actually go to say, hey, if I need, where the natural cemeteries are, like these are a list. Or if I have, do you want that kind of like grouped into?
I mean, even if it's just not necessarily like putting together a resource book, but just like if we had conversations about that and just to create awareness around it, that would, and that's just an example of the kinds of services that we may have that we may not be aware of, or so it doesn't have to necessarily be like a resource book. If there was one, though, to point to, like, hey, if something already exists,
Right.
That's awesome. But
okay. I'm just making notes, so I just want to make sure.
Oh yeah, thank you.
On the same page with everybody else.
And that reminds me of Nikki, or as she's building our website, that would be a great thing to have on our website, is a resource list specific to our state.
Absolutely, yeah, that's on our list. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. And also, I was thinking it'd be really useful if we can Regan was saying that you were saying that you have some holistic knowledge or knowledge about that type of thing. I think if we could hone in on other things like that, and she could do a session, if you don't mind, talking about how we can maybe use it, or just kind of give us a little insight into it. So I think that is anything that's going to benefit all of us. It's definitely worth it.
And Crystal, you hopefully will have the answer to this. So are we sending out a way for them to get information about like when our next meetings? Do we have that out yet? Did they get that?
That it might actually be a Nikki question. I believe that we are ready to move forward with a wait list. As I put all these words into Nikki's mouth, I'll just stop talking now.
Yeah. We have a fun Google form. I can just put the link in the chat right now.
So this is just to kind of keep everybody on the waiting list. Basically, if you want to have more updates about when we're doing things like this, if you want to know more about when we become a little bit more official, as the progress goes. So this gives us the opportunity to get to know everyone a little bit better, gather some preliminary information, and so we will start off kind of slow, just probably some emails from a couple of us here and there as we kind of build that actual newsletter and build the website and get our paperwork filed for the 501c6. But you can feel free to share that link in the chat with any of your other doula friends who might be interested in knowing more and staying up to date on all things Virginia end of life doulas. And so basically what we're doing is we're just kind of taking all of the resources between like my list and Shelby's list and all of our friends who are like, hey, I have a friend that wants to be here. We're just trying to really bring everybody in together. And then when you don't want to be on that list anymore, there will be an unsubscribe button. So there's no commitments. So yeah.
Yeah, because I see routinely every couple of months, I would just send, literally, it would be from my personal email to everyone. Hey, we're going to get together at the library on Sunday, blah, 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 from 2 to 4. Everybody's welcome. So this would be in place of that. Not that I might not send it out, be like, hey, anyone want to grab coffee? But is more like a formal whole group. Let's all get together. We're moving to that and away from Shelby sending out 100 personal emails. Not that I don't want to send you all personal emails, but it's way easier this way with technology. So yeah, so I know we have 2 people that just joined up, Susan and Jody. Oh no, Jody already did. Susan
Jana. I saw Jana show up. Hey, Jana.
Oh, Jana, there you are. If you just want to come off mute and just kind of introduce yourself, what part of the state you're from, that kind of stuff. Unmute.
Me?
Yetta? No, Jana.
Oh, okay.
You just need to unmute yourself, Jana. We can't hear you.
Sorry. My name is Jana Roche, and I'm in Williamsburg with Crystal. And I am a retired chaplain and became a death doula during the pandemic. And I do it mostly word of mouth with people in my church, and I do presentations in the community. And I try to give, I'm not doing it to compete with anybody, but just to help everybody die a better death.
I've always said, to me, I've never gotten like, the more of us that are out there serving people, the more people hear the word end of life doula, the more people know that there's other ways they can die. So to me, it's the more of us out there, the better. So thank you, Jan. I appreciate it. Susan, I know you don't have your camera on, so if you're doing something like driving and you can't speak, totally honor that. But if you would like to come off mute and introduce yourself.
I see Susan in the chat saying that she's experiencing some technical difficulties.
Okay. All right, Susan, I just wanted to make sure you knew you were welcome.
And Sybil is also just joining.
Yes. Hi, Sybil. If you want to come off mute and introduce yourself, what part of the state you're from. Okay, maybe she can't. Okay, well, there we go. And the other thing is, some of you know that when I first did my Death Cafe in 2015, 10 people came and they were like, this is amazing. How can we stay connected? How will I know when the next Death Cafe is? And so myself and Chelsea Primdahl, who's now in Northern Virginia, but she was in Richmond area, developed the Facebook group RVA End of Life Network. Its sole purpose was to really keep people who are interested in end of life topics, death cafes, connected. It has now grown to a group of over 600. Anyone is welcome. I just want to make sure people know that that is not an end-of-life doula specific page. It is anybody who wants to stay connected with end-of-life issues, death cafes. So if you have articles you want to share, if you are doing a death cafe, please post. It's just a great resource, and kind of we started in 2015 not knowing how to keep us all connected. So I'll put it in the chat. So if anybody you want to join, that space is there for everyone. Any last thoughts or questions before I pass it to Remy? Crystal, did you want to say something?
Nope, I think we are good to go. I'm grabbing a couple of links that I'll throw in the chat while we are getting settled in for our next hour, but that's it.
Okay, well, then I'm going to pass it to Remy. Oh,
yes, ma'am.
Do you want me to go ahead and introduce Kaylinn or wait until she comes on?
I believe I do.
Here?
Yeah,
I
she's
see
there.
her.
There's two of you. I was like, wait a second, there's two Ramys, and I have a feeling that's not you.
Oh, no, I might say Remy because she sent me the link.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
So that could be why, but I'm here.
So yes, you can go ahead and take the stage, Remy.
Okay. All right, y'all. I'm introducing my friend Kaylinn Bezenar. Kaylinn Bezenar is a compassionate and accomplished funeral director, embalmer, and advanced planning specialist with a deep commitment to supporting families through the often tough and emotional process of end-of-life planning. She earned her dual licensure as a funeral director and embalmer in 2018. After completing her internship at Morissette Funeral and Cremation Service, she went on to serve as their advanced planning specialist from 2019 to 2024. Kaylinn is particularly passionate about normalizing conversations around death and empowering families to make informed decisions about their final wishes. In addition to her work with pre-planning, Kaylinn has been the manager of Cremation Choice of Virginia since 2019. This small family-owned business focuses on providing affordable cremation services and has allowed her to merge her expertise in funeral service with her desire to offer cost-effective solutions for families in need. Currently, as well as managing Cremation Choice, she works as an RN at VCU and is attending VCU's DMP program in an effort to become a local medical examiner in 2027. Kaylinn is also the president of the Central District Funeral Directors Association for the 2020 year and remains involved in local and state associations. I would also like to just add that I've had the honor of knowing this woman for over 10 years, and she is incredible and very inspiring. And she has just blown me away with her ambition and her drive and her work ethic. So Kaylinn, thank you so much for being here today. Do you need to share your screen?
No.
Okay.
No, I think I wanted this to be more of like a discussion. I got the email as far as like what you guys wanted me to kind of touch on. But then if there's like anything in particular, if you guys have any specific instances that you kind of want to talk through and have my perspective, I'm more than happy to share that. Couple disclaimers right off the bat. All of these are my own opinion. They're not legal advice, nor are they representative of any of the companies that I am part of or the association. So I am also at the airport. My flight was late getting in. So if you hear any announcements, I'm not trying to be rude. We were just taxiing for a very long time. So I guess before I get started, like, are there any questions like right off the front? I think I was going to just kind of go about, I know that with everything happening in California and in Indiana when it comes to doulas and like what y'all's scope is, at least from like our perspective.
You accidentally mute yourself. Just unmute yourself. You just touched your AirPod. I think you muted yourself.
They're like falling out. So just kind of, you know, when it comes to Virginia law, because all of the laws state by state are different. So when you're looking at, you know, these cases that are happening in other states, I think knowing Virginia law is super important because that's going to be what pertains, because you guys are all in Virginia, correct? Okay. So is there any like question like right off the bat before I kind of go into what my thoughts are on this?
Maybe you'll probably cover this,
Cool.
Kaylinn, but it's really about I have been asked by people to not help plan their funeral, but like some of the arrangements. Hey, do you have ideas or what can be done? Or I don't want it to be in a funeral home. I want it to be like here. Can I talk about that?
Yeah, so I think my just overarching what my biggest recommendation is, and this is what like Indiana specifically has focused on, is freedom of speech versus actual action. So like talking about that for sure. I mean, families can go online and they can Google things, that you being a verbal Google isn't against the law. Like, you being able to chat with them about things. I think, at least this is my interpretation, when actions are performed and or when money for said actions, those to me are going to be the two triggering things that is going to get the people all whipped up about this. So the law itself, and I don't know if there's a link to the actual code of Virginia, but the code when it comes to funeral directing is actually pretty short. It goes over like what it means to be a funeral director, what it means to be doing cremation pre-need, which we'll touch on really quickly too. But funeral directing in and of itself, how the code defines it, is a for-profit profession of directing or supervising funerals, preparing human dead for burial by means other than embalming, or making arrangements for funeral services or the financing of funeral services. So talking about things, to me, totally fine. The thing that I get a little bit nervous about, like especially when we talk about like home funerals, because you guys are for profit as well, like families are paying you, and when you're not like the family themselves and you're performing services, because our code specifically says by means other than embalming, that's where I would get a little bit iffy as far as like we can do a home funeral together. That gets a little, but if you're like, these are your resources, these are, how to do it, then I think that would be okay. Especially considering home funerals are legal in Virginia. You can have your own funeral, families can file their own death certificate. The law says that if it's past 48 hours, they either have to be embalmed or in refrigeration under 40 degrees. So I think that after a death occurs, my biggest recommendation is before the death occurs, kind of understand what they want to do. You can guide them, say, hey, these are the steps. But then as soon as the death occurs, especially if you're getting paid, I think you should just take a step back. Or at the very least, I would develop a relationship with a funeral home. And at least have like a funeral director somewhat involved. I mean, the family can do their own death certificate, they can do their own thing, but if you are a separate professional acting in a professional capacity and getting paid to do so, I think the line is crossed, like that triggering moment when they pass and then you get paid is where you're starting to like circle in being a funeral professional. Does that make any sense?
It does. The one thing that I wanted to get a little bit more clarity on is the home funerals are legal in the state. The family does it. But that 48 hours, of course, they're not going to embalm somebody. So
no.
How does that 48 hours come to be if the family's like, we're doing our own home funeral. We're
They
getting
can
ice
do,
sheets. Does it
yep,
matter? Like nobody's going to come in 48 hours and like check their temperature.
no, they're not. They're
Okay.
not.
That's what I
I
heard, that
think,
like it really it's the clock starts when you connect with the funeral home and then the person's dead.
mhm.
Please correct me if I'm wrong. The funeral home now is coming into the story. Now the clock starts for them that they have 48 hours to get that body. Because I've had people wanting to keep their loved one home for 5, 6, 7 hours after declaration of death.
Mhm.
And then they'll call the funeral home when they're ready for the body to be picked up.
Right. And I'm trying to find it because I had that let me find the law real quick. I had it all written up here. There, it says specifically in the law when that 20 or when that 48 hours starts and who is responsible for that. Disposition of those cremains. But no, nobody's going to come and do anything. I think maybe somebody could get in trouble for, I don't know. I don't even think you can really get in trouble for that. I wouldn't be too concerned unless somebody tattles. But you know what I mean? I don't think that like there's no regulatory committee that's in charge of any of that. Where is this? I do know that I read it because I reviewed it just the other day about this is all the board. And I also too, when it comes to this, the board itself, they have meetings relatively like a couple times a year, and I don't know if it would necessarily hurt to go to the board and be like, hey, can we like really quickly iron this out? Because they would be able to for sure say, okay, this is my next, I can disagree.
When you say board, you're talking about the Virginia Board of Funeral Directors.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, the Virginia Board of Funeral Directors, because they're the ones who kind of are in charge of like licensure, and I think they would maybe be able to like weed out. Where is this? Yeah, I just had it saved. But yeah, I think the 48 hours, no, nobody's gonna come in. No one's gonna come and do that. Go. But I think if they have ice sheets and like ice packs, I think even okay, here it is. If a dead human body is to be stored for more than 48 hours prior to disposition, a funeral services establishment having the custody of the body. Yeah. So yeah, if the funeral service has custody, then we are required to either refrigerate or embalm. But I think just for the comfort of the family, having refrigeration is still going to be important too. So I mean, it's not like, yeah, it's not required by law for them to do it, but I do still think it's probably for their comfort for it. But yeah, since you guys aren't technically a funeral establishment, well, yeah, you're not even technically, you're not a funeral establishment, so I don't think it applies to you. And that's going to be listed in 54.1-2811.1. Handling and storage of human remains, and that's part B.
Regan.
Yeah.
Oh,
Regan,
you got it,
you had your
Kelly.
hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna, I mean, you can't, I guess what I was just gonna clarify is that if we're talking about refrigeration, does like ice packs on a body in my house after 48 hours, isn't that refrigeration?
Yeah. Yep,
Okay.
ice packs are fine.
It's not talking about like industrialized refrigeration that the body slips into like at a funeral service or
No, yeah. If I think it's as soon as because it's gonna basically that law I think is written to prevent like funeral, like all those stories of like
yes, yeah. But I mean, I guess like the reason I just wanted to like clarify that and point that out is because if people are getting like freaked out and scared about this law, then
Yeah,
if
no.
talking about ice packs on a body, any of us, I mean, it was part of my doula training. I imagine it was part of all of our doula trainings. Any of us can refrigerate a body, help a family refrigerate a body in their home and instruct them how to do that. If we're talking about ice packs, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the super sticky thing is if you're acting as a professional saying, I have this specialized knowledge of how to do a home funeral or how to, refrigerate, or this is like, I'm an outside party coming in and acting as, the go-to person to facilitate. I guess the facilitate is probably the word I'm looking for. And I'm getting paid to do so. That I think is where you're going to find some sticky situations. I think, if honestly, you guys should probably just make like this is what should happen after you pass booklet, like how to do a home funeral, and then step out or give, I think that if you are there and helping to facilitate this after death occurs for profit, then that's going to be where you're going to have where it's going to get a little sticky, because the law says preparation of the body, even if it's not for embalming, for funeral services prior to disposition, for profit, are kind of like all of those key words that the law says is within the scope of a funeral licensee. But like for what they were saying in Indiana was, hey, we're just telling them info. That's freedom of speech. But when actions occur in tandem as like as working as a professional, then that's where it gets a little dicey.
Thank you. Leanne, your hand's up.
Hey there. Your suggestion about working with the Board of Funeral Directors. Good suggestion. Always want to try to create as much collegiality as possible. However, it is in their best interest not to come to the table. The reason being is you have a lot of competing interests involved. The state has the interest of protecting the public. And so arguably, and you can see this in reading the Institute of Justice's little news blurbs about the California and Indiana case. The statutes, licensing, setting out parameters are to protect the public.
Right.
What this effectively is a restraint of trade protecting funeral directors. They get to carve out a certain piece of turf that they can prevent anybody else from entering into. Where the doulas have the advantage is restraint of trade is nominally reviewed and nominally protected under the law. But obviously we have a federally constitutionally protected right to free speech under the First Amendment, i.e. we can be as deathy as we want, we can talk about as much death as we want. We are protected in doing that. And so that is why, unfortunately, though I do agree, trying to create good relationships with the governing boards in each state, I do think this is going to be a state-by-state battle. It very well may have to involve litigation in each state individually. It will be a First Amendment protection argument, which, as you can already see from the two states that have done this already, there's precedent being created. And so it's being aware And thank you for speaking. Having each and every one of us aware of this is what becoming a respected profession, being a legally recognized profession, is going to entail. And so this is the start of some very good work.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that there are for sure some people, whether they're on the board or not, that can see um, death doulas as a threat to their profession. But I think a lot of that stems from lack of education of what you guys do. I think that having a conversation and having, like you guys mentioned, like a liaison and trying to be like, educate, saying, hey, we're not trying to step on any toes, which you guys aren't. You know, this is what we find. And I mean,
Okay, actually, oh, I didn't realize my mic is still off. One of the things that is pertinent to recognize is the California lawsuit specifically. And I think the second one as well. It was actually the doulas who filed lawsuits. And this is something that doulas, collectives, state by state, at some point should probably have the conversation, is suing for declaratory judgment. Get a judicial statement as to our speech while the client is still alive is protected under our purview of doulas talk. That's pretty much what we do. We do a lot of action, but our strong suit is talking, informing, educating. And so down the road, and it's something that as an organization, doulas may want to do is band together, file these suits, get declaratory judgment, make the First Amendment argument, and as we can see, there is precedent for prevailing on it.
yeah, and I think the Indiana one stemmed from like a cease and desist. Didn't she get like a cease and desist for her? And it was kind of like a knee-jerk reaction from the powers that be, in that there was a complaint filed against her actions. She received a cease and desist, and she was like, I'm gonna counter. I don't know if it was a counter suit, but yeah, I'm going to sue for my right to speak. So yeah, and yeah, I absolutely think that, I think what with you guys have, like, being in the space more, having very clear definition, because I mean that's the same thing with what hospice did way back when. You know, these are what we're doing. This is like what our steps and what our role is. And I mean, we have a great relationship with hospice. And so that's not to say that there can't be a great relationship with doulas, but I think it definitely is like everybody needs to come to the table. And I don't think that funeral directors, for the most part, are going to be the ones to step forward to initiate that relationship. So
Ashley, did you have a thought or a question?
I did. So one of the things that we do, and one of the things that we advocate for, is trying to get as much planning done ahead of time. So when you are at that moment where somebody is, in the active dying stage, you're not thinking about the things that need to happen, in essence of, having all the information needed for a death certificate, because the reality is most people do not plan for their funerals. Or at least that's been my reality here in Lynchburg. Well, I mean, there's a few select people that are like, nope, I have my outfit picked out. I got this, I have that. Like, they have everything. But ultimately, most people do not. And so this is where it's a little bit of a gray area, because, we want to be reimbursed for our time as, profit death doulas, or at least we do, where I am. But when we're talking with people, we're like, you need to have stuff together. But some people just downright refuse to go into a funeral home. It's just, they're not going to do it. So like we have like a form that we have them fill out that ultimately gives us the information that we could then hand over to the funeral home and say, look, I know they wouldn't step foot in here, but we know that you need these things to get the death certificate. We know that they want, they wanted these songs. We know that they wanted these pallbearers, or they didn't want any pallbearers, or or maybe they wanted their best friend to do their, all their planning. So here's your designee, a disposition form that's filled out. So we ultimately are like handing that over to the funeral home. But, to me, that's like really living in a gray area when we read the law. I don't think the funeral homes in our area we have specifically spoken to was like, if you hand us this, we will kiss you.
Yeah, I was like, I don't see any issue with that.
Like they are like, this is nothing. You like us everything that we need on a silver platter.
Yeah.
But it's like, but we are essentially planning their funeral. We're just doing it with them in their home so we can hand it over to a funeral home.
Yeah. And so okay, so what you're doing, Chef's kiss, beautiful. I think that's totally fine. When we talk about pre-planning,
right,
especially within the context of the law. So when I was a pre-planner, yes, I would get some info about, whatever I could for the death certificate, but the majority of what we did is, do you need a hearse? Do you need like things that the funeral home specifically provides and bills for? So things that are on our general price list: hearse, embalming, the funeral service, basic services of our funeral director and staff. That, and us funding and getting all the money for like those specific billable services for us, that's pre-planning.
Right.
When it comes, I would be like, yeah, if you want to hand me your obituary, that's great. I'll keep it on file. If you want to hand me your songs, great. That's, I'll keep it on file. But
right.
I personally, and the funeral home personally, didn't make any money for what you guys are providing. So when you provide pallbearers, when you provide an obituary, when you provide all of those details for like the actual service itself, those are all things that we as a funeral home don't bill for. Those are things that like we just get from the family. So if you provide them, there's no toe stepping. That's honestly more helpful than not.
Yeah, like we have on there, like, do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? If you want a casket,
that's fine.
Like it has like specific things on there for them to like choose from, or really a lot of this is they know the answers to half of them immediately, and then the other half they have to think about. And
I think that's fine.
Leaving that there for them to be like, we'll ponder over this and answer a couple of questions. And then ultimately that goes into a file that when they do pass away, that file essentially goes from them to the funeral home. And then the funeral home hopefully will find that to be helpful. The funeral homes that we've spoken to locally here have, we even had one that was like, hey, yeah, like, if you can just make sure this is on there as well, so that way we can have this, like, that would be great. And but it does seem like, if there was a cantankerous person that was like, oh, you're planning a funeral, it's like, well, I don't plan on doing all this stuff. I am ultimately gathering information in my eyes.
Yeah. And I mean, families, that's like the same thing as like when a clergy steps in and helps. Like, it's totally fine. I think if which you guys don't do, but if you're like, hey, I'm going to just open up a savings account for you, and I'm going to calculate how much all of this is, and I'll just hold on to the funds and then give it to you so that you can then give it to the funeral home. No. But if by just having those conversations and collecting that information, that's not planning a funeral. Yeah. Especially if they're not willing to talk to a funeral director anyway and pre-plan. I mean, if they're all about and, want to do it with a funeral home ahead of time, that's perfect. Funeral directors will even come out to the home and have those conversations too.
Yeah, and we offer that. Like there are several in our area that are more than happy to do that. But I don't know, there's just something
It's fine. We get it.
You know how
I'm not,
people are. Yeah.
yeah, we aren't offended. We get it. So.
Thank you, Rainey.
Ashley, was that a form that you got from someone, or is that something that like your organization kind of created?
We created that.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, we from, you know, our conversations with funeral homes, in addition to just knowing kind of that process by, you know, living it in some aspects, and then the other part of, you know, us helping with this part of our job.
Nice. Kaylinn, is there a recommendation for, I don't know, like a form or something that would be helpful if a family is kind of refusing to interact with a funeral home pre-death? Is there something that would be helpful to kind of encourage them to fill out so we can hand something over to the funeral home and make their life easier?
Yeah, I mean, I think what y'all were saying, you know, pallbearers are always helpful. You know, this is who our contact person is. This is like, honestly, I would have families that come in and I'd be like, okay, are we doing burial or cremation? And they'd be like, we don't know. So like even like a broad surface as that, you know, if they want to do burial, do they already have a site? You know, where's the information for that site? Are, you know, do they want to have a survey? Like, yeah, like I think just kind of by talking through like what the options are, as long as you're not like going over prices, or as long as you're not like, you know, if you're just kind of going through it like in a very like overarching way, like talking about what kind of services. But I think mostly what would be helpful for the funeral directors, because they can go over all of those with them easy peasy, but it's the actual like, what songs do we need? I know that you guys kind of do this already, but like collecting photos, funeral homes love when like the photos are already like there. So I mean, yeah, just kind of pallbearers, super helpful. But yeah, those are all things that the family has to provide on their own anyway, and it's not something that like the funeral home can like do for them.
Gotcha. One other quick question, kind of going back to like, we're supposed to be pretty clear about the fact that we don't charge for services post-death, because that is entering the territory of a funeral director's job. So that's something I just put on like my client agreement, was like, we don't provide any paid services post-death. So like once your loved one passes, the funeral home is taking over from there, and we will not provide any services for your loved one. Is that like, is that good enough for Virginia?
I think, yeah, I think having a disclaimer, like this is where my, yeah, like this is kind of where my scope ends, and I'm not trying to go any further. And these are resources that you can use afterwards. I think that should be fine, especially if you make it clear, like what you said, like I'm not, because yeah, the family can do everything on their own, or if they don't want to, then they can, you know, use a funeral director for that. But having a third party being like a doula in the mix of that, I don't think is what the law allows.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, but
And
I think
also,
having disclaimers is important.
And thank you, Rainey, for those of you who have websites, to make sure you know the language. So even we might be like, we'll help organize funeral arrangements. Like maybe not like, so watch your wording around your websites is a good important. Thank you, Rainey. Crystal.
Hey, okay, so I have, this might not be a funeral director question. It might be a lawyer question. Okay, so in the Code of Virginia, under funeral services, under pre-need funeral contracts, it says that any person may designate in a signed and notarized writing, which has been accepted in writing by the person so designated, an individual who shall make arrangements and be otherwise responsible for his funeral and the disposition of his remains, including cremation, interment, entombment, memorialization, blah, 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 blah. And then a couple, well, I actually don't know how long ago this was. I watched the recording. So this must have been a month ago. There was NEDA, the National End of Life Doula Alliance, had a webinar with the organization's lawyer, Paula Masters, who actually created for every state an appointment of representative for disposition of bodily remains, funeral arrangements, and burial or cremation goods and services. And I'm wondering, in your opinion, how does this muddy the waters in, let's say, like a hypothetical situation where you have a fairly independent with a new terminal diagnosis and they don't have family or friends that they rely on. However, they need additional help. They don't want to go into the funeral home for whatever reason. They need these extra services. What does this mean to a doula if we are approached by somebody who says, hey, I've heard that I can appoint somebody to take care of my funeral arrangements. I've got this form that was created by a lawyer. And so I want you to be that person. And up until I die, I want to pay you to help educate me on how to do the planning. But like, I don't want to go to the funeral home. I want it to be you. Is this like a red flag? Is this bad?
So I don't think so, because we have lawyers, like family lawyers, who have that role. But that specific, like what it's usually referring to, because I'd have to look at the form, but okay, I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. So I think what that form is typically utilized for, because we use it all the time for like our cremation services, is it basically the same thing as like a funeral designee? Is that kind of the other word that they use for it?
The title, the title says appointment of representative for disposition of bodily remains, funeral arrangements, and burial or cremation goods and services.
Okay. So from a pre-need perspective, I would double check with how, because I do know that like when I was doing pre-need, I would run into that every once in a while where a lawyer was doing that, or where the lawyer had appointment, and I'm unsure what their compensation was. I'm sure they were compensated though. But usually funeral designees come into play like when you are listed as like a representative after death. So we use them where it's like when I did pre-need, or when I still do pre-need, if like, let's say same situation, somebody doesn't have any next of kin, or mom has 10 kids. And so cremation in Virginia, all next of kin need to sign off. And so I would push for a funeral designee, and I would say, look, do you want all the 10 kids to have to sign off on your cremation? Or we can do a funeral designee, and you can list literally anyone. It doesn't even have to be any of your kids. And they basically are the ones who we as a funeral home work with to write and handle all of the arrangements afterwards. I don't know if the law says that it can't be for compensation. So that would be a little bit of a little loophole that I would maybe you might want to not like necessarily look into, but try to flesh out to see. I know that there are some lawyers who act in that capacity, and they're not funeral directors, but they like represent after death. Like they're the person that we work with, and they say, look, I have all of what they want on file. This is what we're going to do. Does that answer that at all? I know that for sure funeral designees, I've had lawyers that are funeral designees come forward after death, and they've had a notarized statement that they're the ones who are in charge.
It sounds like Leanne, who is a lawyer. Leanne, do you have something to add to this? Yes, I see you like.
Yes. This is as straightforward. It's a standard limited power of attorney. It actually has nothing to do with the board of funeral directors or anything else. The example is if I want to sell my car, but I am in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, the car is in North Carolina, I can give a written limited power of attorney to my best friend to sell the car on my behalf. I'm perfectly competent and capable. I'm not available to do it, or I'm choosing not to do it. I draft a contract. I pay them $500 plus traveling expenses. This one's actually a non-conversation. It is the standard way of giving your authority to somebody else to act on your behalf because you want them to, and you're paying them.
Oh, so
And so
from a
it's not coincidental that the funeral planning happens to be the topic, but it is, in many cases, if somebody has a full estate plan organized where they have executed durable powers of attorney in advance, funeral planning and preparation is often part of the language that's included in those documents as well.
Yeah, and I feel too with that, like you're still working, like this is still within the context of you working with a funeral home. So whether or not the family pays, like you said, like to be the funeral representative, they're not paying you to do funeral services for them. They're paying you to be the liaison with a funeral
Right.
home.
You're the one picking and choosing on behalf of the individual.
Yeah. So I think that's all to say that I've seen it before. It was fine.
Thank you. Did you have another question, Leanne, or is that your?
No.
Okay. So I actually am going to turn the tides a little bit. I'm so interested in whether you want to call it aquamation, liquid cremation. Is that ever coming to our state? Oh, I see a smile and a dance. Maybe, yes?
It was on a law, like it was in session. I don't know if it was last year or the year before.
It was this last session.
It was this past session, right? And I forget who, man, I want to say it was SEI. But there was, I want to say that there was some like issue with the wording of something. And so it was tabled. I don't know if they necessarily pulled it. But it didn't come to fruition. That's not to say that they're not working on it.
Well, I was gonna say, Kaylinn, if there's ever like if you need people to like write our representatives or like you have a little army of people here, you just tell Rami and we will call representatives and be like, we need to make this happen.
Yeah, there was I think there was a group that came forward, and for the life of me, I forget which one it was. But they came forward and they basically were like, we're not about this. We need to work on it. And then they went back to the drawing board for wording and everything. And then I think it just got to be too late. And they were like, okay, whatever, we're just going to do it again. I have an email actually where they like gave us the whole rundown because I'm with the Virginia Funeral Directors Association. They do a lot with like the laws every year. And so I don't know, I'll see if I can find it and I'll send it to Rami and she can send it out where they went over what happened because we got a whole rundown of it. But yeah, there are people in the funeral industry that are trying to make it happen. It's not like the funeral directors are against it. I think there's just some subset, and I forget which one it is, that didn't like the wording the way that this last one, because I think it opened up the door for like things other than alkaline hydrolysis.
Kaylinn, what about human composting?
That's even further off in Virginia. I think what we wanted to do ideally was put it in, because in Virginia, we thought that there would maybe be a loophole when it came to cremation, because some laws define cremation very differently, where it's like the breakdown of human remains, but ours specifically states in Virginia law by the process of flame. So when it comes to adding any of these other things like composting, alkaline hydrolysis, anything like that, they have to we're either going to have to change the definition of cremation, or add in new parts, which takes forever. But I do know that alkaline hydrolysis has been and probably will continue to be pushed for. I know funeral directors in the area who like already have machines who really want it to get done. So there's definitely proponents for it. It's just a matter of having the manpower to get it through. But yeah, when it comes to composting, I couldn't even tell you if and when that fight's gonna happen. But there's still green burials, which is kind of as close as we can get at this point. So there's a new one in Charlottesville, which there's up in Duck Run. There's the one Forest Lawn. I've done funerals at Duck Run, and is it Forest Lawn? Forest out west. But
Cool Springs Run or something like that. There's a cool, I think.
Yeah, I think it was like Forest something. I did a pre-need for it. They had these beautiful jewel tone shrouds. It was really cool.
Forest Rest. They're
Forest
great.
Rest.
Yeah,
great. Forest Rest. Yep. So,
Kaylinn, could you let us know what that would look like?
What would look like?
Like a green burial, what that looks like? Just kind of walk it through.
Yeah. So green burial, it's honestly more cemetery specific than anything else. A lot of cemeteries have so in the state of Virginia, there's no legal, like there's no law that states that you have to have a casket. There's no law that states that you have to be embalmed, and there's no law that states that you have to be in a vault, like that your casket goes in the vault. Vaults and casket requirements are typically cemetery specific. They have rules and regulations, like we'll only choose, because they're again a business, we'll only choose to bury you if you're in a casket or if you're in a vault, because it prevents the ground from sinking, and it's easier to mow. It's really where it stems from. And so there's no law that says that you have to do any of those, but the cemeteries are the ones that say you need to, because this is what we say you have to. So green burial is basically this saying that there's cemeteries that exist that say you don't need to be embalmed, which I don't know. The only time that I ever have cemeteries require embalming is if they're going to be in a mausoleum. And that's also cemetery specific, because some cemeteries will say you don't have to be embalmed, but you have to be in a gasketed metal casket. Or if you're embalmed, then you can be in a wood casket. So they have all these regulations that are cemetery specific, but the ones that are quote unquote green funerals say you don't have to be embalmed and you don't have to be in a casket, and we absolutely don't let you have vaults. Depending on the cemetery too, I know Duck Run does renting of a space where you can you lease a space for like 70, 75 years or so. And then after that time, they take whatever's left, put it usually in like a communal area, I believe. And then they'll put like a stone in like a little path, which is cool. But from a funeral home perspective, I mean, the funeral home that I interned at, we do green burials. We're green burial certified, like green certified with the NFDA. And so we had to do a lot of stuff to show that we're quote unquote green. So we had to change the grass that we had in like our front yard, and we had to change, we implemented like all this recycling stuff. And theoretically, you either have to be able to show that you can do a service without embalming, which we do all the time, and or the use of green embalming chemicals, which I don't think we do. We just say, look, we'll do visitations or services without embalming. And then, yeah, we have the ability to transport shrouds, the ability to transport green caskets and everything like that. So, but yeah, that's all to say, when green burial is basically just having a burial without the American traditional embalming casket. Well,
along those lines, so you're in Richmond, correct?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I keep looking at your name. It's like, I know your name's not Rami, but it says Rami. So because I've had people who want a green burial who live in Richmond.
Yeah.
What is the transportation like? I mean, I think the closest one is the one in Charlottesville to us. How much does it cost to get somebody physically to a green burial site? Do you know?
Yeah, so it depends on the funeral home, but usually what funeral homes do is they have a radius. So like, they'll say within, like, if you're going to use our hearse, let's say our hearse is $400. Our hearse will take you anywhere from point A to point B within a 50-mile radius. Anything above 50 miles, we're going to charge usually per mile one way. When you get above a certain mileage, usually they'll add on tolls or they'll add on like a hotel fee for their staff or something like that. But most places from Richmond to any of our, like within Richmond or within Virginia, you'll have your base fee for the hearse. And then depending on mileage, it's usually a set price per mile.
Okay.
After. Per loaded mile is usually what they call it.
Per loaded mile. Awesome. If someone doesn't want to go in a hearse, are there other choices?
Yeah, we've done pickup trucks. I've ratchet strapped someone to the back of a pickup truck before. If they want to go in like their little, yeah, I think.
Like some people don't want the pomp and circumstance of being in a hearse, and they're like.
No, we have transfer vans that we can use if somebody just doesn't want a hearse, or, we've had families provide their own car in lieu of a hearse, so we don't even charge them for a hearse. Like if they provide their own car, I think that's going to be funeral home specific. You'd want to say, honestly, if you know that up front, especially if you're as like a doula or something, if you want to call funeral homes and be like, do you allow this? Then you'll know ahead of time, like, hey, I can take my person here. We'll load them up in our cyber truck or our pickup truck or whatever. And we've done it before. So yeah, it's not at least for us, it wasn't a big deal.
Cool. Thank you. Annette.
I'm sorry. I'm just having a really good chuckle about putting grandma in the truck. Just sorry.
It was so great. They loved it.
I'm seeing a whole Saturday Night Live skit and a Disney movie with all this. This is funny. What is a green casket?
So it's going to be something that's made out of like biodegradable material. So it's either going to be a shroud, which is going to be like linen or usually the caskets that we've used they look like wicker baskets, but they're going to be like bamboo, or I think there was willow are the two, or seagrass are the three biggest ones that I've seen. Passages International is the company that we usually worked with to get our caskets, and they provide shrouds, and they show like a really good they can give you a really good idea of like what that looks like. They also, I believe, only work with funeral homes, so like you have to be a funeral home to order from them, I believe.
And would their materials vary per state?
Like no, they're an international, or not international. Well, they could be. Well, they say international, but they're a national company.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also buy and purchase your own casket.
Yes. And in Virginia, you can provide your own casket, and funeral homes have to treat it with the same rules that they would for their own caskets. So you can absolutely provide your own casket. The only thing that and they can't charge a casket handling fee, They also can't have undue rules and regulations for how it's delivered or anything that they don't have for their own casket delivery.
Thank you. Rainey.
I should have said that.
You're still muted. Oh, there you go.
Would most funeral homes be okay? Like, would they be willing to work with the family even if the family is not using their funeral home for the service itself, and they just need transportation maybe out to like a green burial site?
I would ask them. You'd probably, anytime though that I think it depends. I mean, our funeral home would do like memorial services and not charge, like if you did like your cremation elsewhere and needed to use our place for a service, we wouldn't charge our basic service fee. But in that case, you're not handling a decedent. So I would just double check with them, but I don't see why not. If somebody reached out to me, I mean, you'd probably maybe would have to pay their basic service fee, especially if you were going to have a funeral director involved. But I would just ask them. I don't see why not, but it would be a conversation between them.
Gotcha. One other quick question. So if you are like a doula and you're trying to introduce yourself to a local funeral home, is there maybe like a funeral director in a certain role who would be like the most approachable person to talk to?
I would, and I meant to say this at the beginning, I would, like when I talked about developing a relationship, what I would recommend truly is get in with their pre-need person. Their pre-need person does things called lunch and learns, usually, where they go out into the community and they do a presentation where they talk to people about pre-arrangements, da 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 da. If I was a pre-need person, well, when I was a pre-need person, I would have absolutely loved if I had, because I did presentations with lawyers about estate planning. We did a presentation the other day with a real estate person because they were trying to make like some kind of, so anyway, I think pre-need for sure is who you're going to want to have relationships with, because then that's another way where people haven't died yet and they're thinking about end of life, whether that's in 30 years, 20 years, currently. And because pre-need also has like relationships with hospice and everything like that. So I would definitely reach out to pre-need directors. And especially if you have if you say, look, I'm hosting this event, I would love it if you would come and speak and invite them instead of having them just be like, hey, can I hop on your train? Be like, come hop on mine. I don't see any pre-need person that wouldn't jump at that opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal.
Yeah, hi. So if you are doing, let's say you're doing a home funeral, and you have like a natural burial site picked out and you are going to transport on your own, do the family members involved in the transportation need to notify and or otherwise get a permit to transport that body in the state of Virginia?
Not within state lines, but if they are transferring out of state lines, they need a out of state transfer permit.
Okay. And so then when they get pulled over for speeding on the interstate and there's a dead body in the back of the pickup truck, what does that look like?
I couldn't tell that. I don't know. I think I don't know. If I were them, I would just recommend, I mean, technically you don't need a death certificate to bury, but if they're planning on doing everything on their own and they had grandma in the back, I'd maybe want a death certificate.
Okay. Okay.
To show that it was legit. But that would, I would maybe do that. But I don't know if there's any law that says that you need to, but that would just be my recommendation.
Thanks. Regan.
My question was actually the same as Christelle's, but I just want to clarify. So are you saying that the laws in the state of Virginia, there are no laws requiring any special permit or special permission to transport a dead body or any special vehicle within the state of Virginia?
Within the state of Virginia, and it talks about it specifically in the code, and I can try to find it. But I'll try to find it. But there is a section in the code that specifically talks about transporting within the state. And it says if you're within the state, you don't have to have any kind of anything. But if you're going to transfer over state lines, it's what's called an out-of-state transfer permit. And that's something that you have to get from the state. Let me try to find it.
And would include moving a dead body from a hospital where they died to their home if that's what they wanted.
That's fine. I mean, we've had people show up on our doorstep with mama.
Okay.
So,
and I would just second that. Like, it seems like a good idea to have the death certificate with you. I like that idea a lot.
That would just be
Thank you. Probably we only have one last time for Ashley, and then we'll end our meeting.
So I kind of had a two-part question a little bit. One, I wanted to clarify, because I was under the impression you can purchase a casket in the state of Virginia, but only a funeral home can accept them, correct? You can't have that casket come to your home, from my understanding. Is that incorrect?
I don't think there's necessarily a law that states it. I think that might just be like whatever company, like I think that's like a company decision. Because like I know that like urn companies, for example, choose to only work with funeral homes, and family can still order, but they'll like call us and stuff. And I think that's just more so to preserve relationships.
Right.
I don't know if there's a law that says that they have to give it to a funeral home.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know people who make them on like Etsy, or if you have like crafters, they can deliver them to you. But if you're working with a company, I agree. It just makes it easier. But yeah, you can order off Etsy and they'll send it to you.
So the way it was explained to us was you can build your own casket. You can weave your own your own casket. You can do any of the things yourself. But if you were to try to purchase one offline, that Virginia was one of the few states that wanted that, or mandated that go through the funeral home. For like, if I wanted to like go, let's say on Amazon, because they have everything, and order like a true like casket, that can be problematic. So I just wasn't 100% sure on that.
I can try to find that, because there's a part on the code that specifically talks about caskets too.
But to that effect, you can do that, and you can ship it to any funeral home, and they can't like tack anything on top of it. They can't any fuss about it. They just have to accept it and move on
with a smile.
Yeah. So like that was kind of the way it was explained to me. Like, if you want to build your own casket in your wood shop, that's totally fine, but you can't purchase it and have it delivered and like keep it in the attic until you're ready for it, type of situation. So that was my first part of my question. And then the second part, and actually other people may be able to help with this. There was somebody here locally that had passed away, and they wanted to do a home burial. They another death doula had helped with this, but our local hospital would not release that body to the family. They refused. They had to find a funeral director to actually sign off so that way they could get the body. And luckily there was one here that was nice enough to be like, fine, sign it over to my care, and then ultimately gave their family member back to them to be buried on their property, which is what the gentleman wanted. So I guess my question would be like how to navigate that when not everybody is aware that you can transport your person, wherever you want them to be buried, and you can bury them, in your backyard in Virginia. Like that's legal. And that's what they wanted. But in a roundabout way had to go about it. because the hospital was just like, yeah, no. And we don't live in a place where there's like multiple choice here. It's what we have to what we have.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys probably went about it the right way. I think that mostly stems from education, than anything else, because I think people are just like, is that, I mean, I would, if I didn't know any better, I'd be like, is that allowed? I mean, I feel that same way too when I first started in the funeral service, and they're like, oh, no, you can just take mom. Like, wait, can you? Like, you can. But I think, yeah, I'll double check and see. I don't know for sure where it says somewhere that like the family can be like fully the one to take charge. And so I mean they're allowed to do it for sure. I think it's just like the lack of education on the hospital's part. And maybe if it becomes more of like a standard thing, they'll be like, oh no, we've done it before. Like it's a thing.
Right. Yeah. No, they were just like, nope, we're not doing that. Funeral director, somebody who's going to take this body, that's not you. And luckily, we have some pretty awesome, funeral directors around here that are very open to helping, families in very specific ways, even if it's not the whole shebang. So.
Yeah. And so it says too, I just found the third party caskets. So any person selling or providing pre-need caskets shall be subject to the same pre-need requirements set forth in 16 CFR Part 453 Funeral Industry Practices and the Federal Trade Commission. And then it says on another one. So, which basically says that like funeral homes don't have to store caskets like for pre-need contracts. So it doesn't really say, and if any funeral supplies are sold and delivered prior to the death of the subject for whom they are provided, the seller or any legal entity in which he or a member of his family has an interest therefore stores these supplies, the risk or loss of damage shall be upon the seller during the period of such storage. So that's why most people don't offer to store ahead of time. So.
Well, thank you, everyone. And most importantly, thank you, Kaylinn, for taking this time to like educate us. It has been super, super, super helpful.
Oh, it was helpful. Yeah, I think, yeah, as long as like conversations keep happening and I think developing relationships with your local funeral home, I promise we're not all bad. And I promise we want to work with you guys just as much as you want to work with us, because I think once funeral directors see like how helpful it can be for the family, any misconceptions they have will
I would say,
disappear.
with the exception of one funeral director, everyone else in the Richmond area has been very receptive. I have experienced. So.
Yeah. I think tides are changing a little bit. There's still some grumps, but it'll give a couple years. So
thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who came and learned, and we'll continue to do this and ask questions. Crystal, do you have anything before we leave?
No, well, yes, that's a lie. Yes, we will be sending out a recording of today's session to everyone who was unable to make it that registered. There will be a little bit of a recap from Ashley. Thank you so much, Ashley. I have grabbed all of the links that have been shared in the chat, and we are also going to be including a link to Kaylinn's LinkedIn in case you would like to connect with her. And if you guys have any questions or anything, please make sure that you are filling out that link that Nikki shared for the wait list. Share it with all your end-of-life doula friends, and you'll be hearing more from us shortly.